What an absolute week of games. Week 8 was a full slate, no buys this week, and it was only the 4th week since the year 2000 where we saw 5 game-winning scores in the final minute of the game. Washington,
October, witching hour.
Arizona,
this is on brand.
Green
this is
Bay,
on brand.
In Cleveland. It was great. The witching hour. Chris Hansen was in his bag. He was going off during that, and rightfully so, because there were some wild endings, but none wilder than, unfortunately, the Bears going down 15-18 in Washington on a 52-yard Hail Mary.
Hey, look, we knew that whatever happened in this ball game, it would be magnified because of the two guys that are quarterback, the storylines, these two franchises flipping the script. You know, Washington ownership that's a new regime there. They got the right guy at quarterback. We get flexed in this 425 window. I thought it was going to be Mariota all week. I texted my guys on the Washington team, and they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't give me anything. They said, Jaden's a tough guy, but I don't know if he's going to go. He probably shouldn't go, blah, blah, blah. And then the game happens, and Jaden goes. And Jaden looks like Jaden. He's taking hits.
And he took a shot right to his ribs,
balls down the field. He's able to run. I just, I close my eyes, and I picture that first down marker cam where it's just Jaden Daniels finding a way to wiggle for the first down on all third downs, on all 2nd and 8s. Caleb, this offense, they didn't start out hot at all. As a matter of fact, it was a poor performance from the offense. I give a tremendous amount of that defense for bending and not breaking early on in the game. They did a great job limiting this Washington offense to field goals. Cliff Kingsbury in this offense has scored a lot of touchdowns this year, a lot of field goals yesterday. So I give credit to that defense. But I want to go under further review with you here. We usually do this segment at the end. I'm going to go under further review the last 2 plays of the game. It was Tony Romo talking about, well, hold on a second, Jim. There's 5 seconds. That's more than enough time for a 10-yard out. Get you a little bit closer to Hail Mary range. They weren't in Hail Mary range on the second to last play. So that's what they did.
35. That's
what they did. They were at the friendly 35, trying to get 35 across midfield or close to it. They end up getting 12 yards, I'd say, on the out route to the left side.
To the 48, 13 yards.
Outside, an out route to the left side, and then and by the way, nobody covered him. Nobody covered him. They went drop 8 essentially.
And they're all 22. Every single person. They had 4 at the line. Every single person, 40-plus yards down the football field.
And that means, well, you know what? If you can make it happen in 3 seconds, we're going to give you 15 yards.
It was 6 seconds, actually.
And we're going to let you go from a logo 3 to an elbow jumper. And then you get Jaden Daniels back there on the Hail Mary play in a rush 3 situation, drop 8. And they have TJ Edwards in a spy who never crosses the line of demarcation there, the line of scrimmage. And he's just kind of mirroring Jaden Daniels as if Jaden Daniels could somehow take off and run for a 60-yard touchdown. That's the first issue. And the second issue is all the people in my mentions talking about penalties on the last play. Penalties don't exist on Hail Marys, okay? Last play of the game, they throw the rule book out. It's always been that way in the National Football League. Does it make sense? No, but that's just the way that it is. So if I'm a guy on the back end, I am locking onto arms, legs. I'm biting, spitting, kicking back there. The issue wasn't the scrum. The issue was there. You have to be as deep as the deepest. And we obviously saw Tyreek Stevenson in the right corner of the end zone talking that mess to those Commanders fans because the Bears just scored. There's not a lot of time on the clock. It's going to be GG's Bears, right? Wait, hold the phone. Jane Daniels gets 12 and a half seconds to run around like a madman and then launch it down there. Tyreek Stevenson, late on arrival to the scrum, tips it up. Noah Brown, touchdown. It was the worst experience I've ever had as a Bear fan sitting on my couch and watching. I was part of the double doink. I was there. Against the Eagles when we lost. This felt worse. What about it felt worse? The fact that I think this team could be better than that team, and they're losing games in that way. I don't have the words to explain how frustrated I am, not only with Tyreek Stevenson, who came clean last night and had a tweet, Dear Chicago fans, which is a good gesture. That's a good way to start. I had an issue with the defense, the play call. And speaking of play calls, I'm going to go back to the first drive that went down the field for the Chicago Bears when they gave the ball to a backup center who has been playing fullback. He's been doing a masterful job of playing fullback for this Bears team, but they give him the ball and they call it a goal line run, but it was about 7 feet of runway that you have to cover. As
I don't think he was
fullback.
getting in had he
wasn't getting in. You were
given
too
what
far.
I saw.
You know what you do? You give the ball to Roshan Johnson like you did with 25 seconds left in the game. I was so frustrated. I've given the benefit of the doubt to this coaching staff a number of times, and I don't think that they had a great plan on the last play. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this, because I'm frustrated as a Bears fan, and I know there's Bears fans that are frustrated at home. Explain to them what the best way to defend this Hail Mary would have been.
Well, I think they screwed it up initially with giving them time. So Jaden Daniels, good arm, but he's not getting it 70 yards.
No.
That was 65 yards about where he got it. Just having watched back in his career, that's about the tops.
And with a rib.
So with the very first play, to line up thinking they're going from their own 35, where to get it off from your own 35, you're going to have to throw it 70 plus yards, right? A drop back, you're 3 to 4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, max, like minimum. So he's not getting it there. So from that perspective, they had to know that something else was coming besides a pure Hail Mary there. So to line up everyone back like they did, to me, was just poor coaching to just give them free yards.
Yep.
And everyone and their mother, Tony Romo in the booth, saying they just gave them 10, 12 yards.
This is what's going to happen.
Like, they're going to take
closer.
It. Because even if they had a Hail Mary called, you see that, you line up in that, you say, let's get it closer. It's just going to be easier. So they screwed it up there. The Hail Mary defense itself, I like blitzing, especially when you know when it's not like a 40-yard Hail Mary where you can throw it quick, where it's something like a 60-yard Hail Mary where that thing is going to have to take time to get down there. It's going to have to be a lofted ball. Just make sure Jaden has to get it off quick. Don't give him, it was the first completion, 11.8 seconds or whatever Next Gen Stats said. Don't give him that much time. I like bringing a fifth guy in those situations because regardless of where it's going to be a scrum. You don't need a seventh guy in there. Truthfully, if Tyreek Stevenson had never stopped celebrating and just been in the corner the whole time,
it would have been a Bears win.
It ends up an incompletion. So like you almost don't need that many people at some point back in defense. 6 is usually more than enough because everyone knows where it's coming down to. So that was my issue. And I do think they screwed it up again on the play prior than the actual Hail Mary. The Hail Mary was just a fluke. And that's how most Hail Marys end up being. But to give them good range of making it there as opposed to what they were prior with 6 seconds left, I thought was where they lost that one.
I was also disappointed with the way this Bears team performed offensively coming off a bye week.
I will say the Commanders really, from what I saw on tape, spooked Caleb Williams early by jumping routes. They came out and said, we're going to try to get a pick off Caleb Williams. You had Frankie Louvu jump an out route to Cole Kmet early on that Caleb Williams, I can't believe he held on to the ball. He had a full pump fake throw, and that he ended up scrambling on that play. And then a screen about, I think it was the next drive, Mike Sainer still jumps that if he would have thrown the screen, it was a pick six going back the other way. He ends up just like dumping it into the stands after that screen was blown up, to where after that, there was just a tightness to Caleb that you couldn't shake out of him until it really was back against the wall.
Gotta have it.
Exactly. So I think that was the biggest
best version of Caleb comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, you see him confident. You see his body language change. You come out of a bye week, and, I give a tremendous amount of credit to Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
And that
Quinn ate Waldron's lunch in that game. Quinn had the much, much better game plan for what the Bears were going to do than the Bears.
100%. Jaden Daniels also outperformed his rookie counterpart, Caleb Williams. And it wasn't perfect from Jaden Daniels, but there were some huge plays in that game. There were some opportunities to extend drives that he took advantage of with his legs. And what a tough, gritty performance. And I mean, I've had cartilage tears and stuff like that in my ribs, and I've got them on my sternum still to this day. They haven't repaired because I like to golf. Sometimes I rip it. It's one of the most painful things to go out there with a rib. And I'm not exactly sure how he's feeling or what they did for him pregame. But yeah, you probably got the nerve block. You know what I mean? And the nerve block, that wears off. So at some point in the game, you're looking at Jaden Daniels who's out there dealing with raw pain, and he's still able to make it happen. The last throw was really impressive. I thought that reaction from the fans in Washington was really cool, albeit I was sick to my stomach watching it. I'm not panicking on Caleb Williams. I still don't think I don't think it's you got the right guy, we got the wrong guy. They got two different guys. They can win with both these guys. You got to give credit to the Commanders, but I have a lot of questions about some of the stuff that this staff has been doing for the last week and a half in prep for this game.
And again, in the Caleb versus Jaden, one is much younger, one is much less experienced. Caleb will be fine. And again, you saw it down the stretch there with Caleb after some early struggles. I'm not making any strong sweeping takeaways from this game, other than I think you can tell Jaden Daniels is pretty damn good, right? You can tell he's at that level already.
Good.
You could tell Caleb is on the precipice of reaching that level. It's just he needs to play more football and he'll get better. And he has shown that already throughout this early season. But I am of the opinion that this may be, we may look back on this and say, this isn't the worst thing in the world that they lost this game. Because I think we're on a track with just how the season's kind of been going and how the Eberflus era has been going, that he may be out the door.
Yeah, we're unsure about Eberflus. And I like Matt Eberflus as a guy. His defense has been amazing, okay? Like, nobody has scored more than 21 points through 7 games.
Yeah.
Let's not forget this. This is the Commanders team that went and put, I think it was like the past 3-4 weeks, it's been ridiculous.
Yes. And well, they held them
even with Mariota
to feed it to 12 points is kind of what they held them to. The Hail Mary outside, like they held them to 12 points. And yeah, they moved the football, but they clamped down when it matters most. This defense is still good. But if a new staff were to come in, or if Eberflus were to be fired, staff's gone at the end of this year, this is the 1A job in the NFL in terms of who wants to be there. You have a prime spot to win in terms of the talent on that roster, especially on the defensive side of the football, and especially at the quarterback position where you have the holy grail. You have a quarterback who's cheap on a rookie deal with talent around him that doesn't need too many pieces, doesn't need too much more. It just needs him to develop. And so every offensive coordinator worth of salt would be licking their chops to go into a situation like that. So I think it does immediately become a very, very attractive job if they were to move on from Eberflus. And this was, we always said at the beginning of the season, this was kind of the easy stretch, right? They before the gauntlet begins. So it was always kind of the warm up before the second half of the season. Now, we didn't expect the Commanders to be this good, but next 2 weeks is kind of the end of the warm up. Cardinals, Arizona, Patriots.
Yep.
And then from there, it goes Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers. Not a single team below 500. The final, what is that, 8 games of the season or 7 games of the season? They better be right now with a wild card at 5-2 in the NFC, because the NFC is kind of the house with how it's played out. With a wild card at 5-2 already, and the Bears sitting at 4-3. They have to win these next 2 games to realistically have a shot, because you can't expect to go too much better than 4-4 in those final 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really tough stretch, and you would hope that the experience gained in the first half of the season will pay dividends for Caleb Williams in this offense. But the one thing that kept rearing its ugly head was the protection issues for Chicago. And also, these linemen are dropping like flies. Every other play, it's Tevin Jenkins on the ground. It's it's another guy on the ground for the Bears. And you can't expect to have these backups in there and have a formidable protection plan and have guys that can stand up to NFL rushers every week. And Caleb's running around there like Fran Tarkenton, if I'm being quite frank with you. And I think he did a really good job dealing with that. And I give him credit for not being the guy that throws his group under the bus, but it hasn't been good enough. It just hasn't been good enough. I was really disappointed last night as a Bears fan. I was looking forward to that game very much. But I'm not part of the Bears, so it doesn't really matter what I think.